Despite my deep love of cinema and literature, I find myself thinking about anime more than any other medium. Animation gives an unparalleled freedom to its creators, who can leverage images and movements in a way that live action and comics simply can't. Of course, it is the Japanese style of animation that has shaped my life, the way I look at the world and the stories I seek out. From my earliest memories of watching Yu Yu Hakusho and Dragon Ball Z, to later watching Attack on Titan or Haikyuu for the first time, no matter how old I get, I find myself consistently seeking out the ends of anime. Over the last handful of years, a question has gnawed at the back of my mind. What are the foundations of anime? I think this question stems from my time studying English literature at university. In literary studies, you run into the concept of the literary canon. As defined by TCK Publishing, the literary canon is part of the larger canon, which is a list of the most important, influential, or definitive works in art, literature, music, and philosophy. These works are often described as the classics, but the terms aren't necessarily synonymous. To be considered a part of the canon, a book has to be more than just great and able to withstand the test of time. It has to be considered essential. The literary canon is a nebulous concept, one pioneered by critics and academics to try and create a structure for what texts should and shouldn't be studied. We will never collectively settle on one canon, but it's crucial for individuals and institutions to define what the canon is for themselves. The literary canon serves as an invaluable asset to create a baseline of essential works while opening a window into what a certain time period considers to be great. What would anime's canon look like? Now, anime deals in decades, while literature has centuries, but I still think we can find value in creating an anime canon, or at least trying to. We're too close to know what series will remain essential, so instead I want to take a more academic approach. If you wanted to get a general overview of anime, the series everyone should watch, the genres and time periods that make up the medium, what would you recommend? That is what I hope to accomplish here. I want to tackle the foundations of anime, first by looking at genre and concept, then demographic, and lastly by decade to fill in the gaps. I think it's important for anime fans to start curating their own canon. So if I don't mention a series that you consider to be essential, make sure to let me know what those are in the comments below. No matter how many series you watch, a list like this will always come down to personal taste. First, there are 5 shows that presuppose genre and time. These are the shows that have an intersection between popularity and critical acclaim. All 5 are accessible, and yet still expand and deepen our understanding of what anime can be. Some of them might have even been your introduction to anime. But one thing's for certain, all anime fans owe it to themselves to watch each one of them. Let's start with Fullmetal Alchemist. While I am a big believer in watching the original version of FMA, as its first 20 episodes are a superior introduction to the characters and world, I still think FMA Brotherhood is a fine place to start.
Roy, how goes?
FMA has stood atop the pyramid for a long time, in large part due to its balance of great characters and wide scope packed within 64 episodes. Its tonal mix of brutal story beats and slapstick humor highlights a major selling point of anime. Anime does an amazing job at hitting on extremely dark subject matter, but never has an issue finding the light within that. FMA's animation style flows with that tone, making it easy to grasp the intentions of any given scene. Fullmetal Alchemist is an action-packed story with a vibrant and lovable cast of characters, as Edenal's search to get their bodies back gets them involved in a nationwide conspiracy. If this entire list is a baseline for what anime can be, then FMA is the core of that baseline, offering such a wide range of emotions and perspectives that it has become the high watermark for anime. as a medium. Neon Genesis Evangelion is the experimental masterpiece of the medium, born out of the demanding cycle of creating anime. This dark mecha show lives in a critical genre for anime's history and is deeply tied to the mind and psyche of its director, Hideki Anno. Eva is a challenging piece of art, one that at times defies conventional story structure. It is the story of a young boy who deals with the trauma of piloting a giant robot in the face of a dystopian future and a father who's abandoned him. Evangelion deals in trauma and psychoanalysis, with action sequences, stakes, and questions that will bend your mind. Not everything in anime's canon will be beloved by all, but Eva pushed forward anime in a way few shows ever have. I see Attack on Titan as the essential modern anime to watch. It is the kind of anime that you rip through, getting to the next reveal or layered action sequence, and along the way picking up on an interesting thematic web of anti-war messaging. Attack on Titan has universal appeal, from the dystopian fear of large humanoid creatures destroying mankind. Attack on Titan defined the last decade of anime, helping the medium grow to even greater heights. It isn't just the influence this series has on the modern era, but how well crafted the narrative is. Attack on Titan, especially its early seasons, mixed hand-drawn and 3D animation beautifully to create the ODM sequences we love. Overall, Attack on Titan has the total package of everything you could look for in a series. Cowboy Bebop never ceases to blow me away. Like Evangelion, it was created with hand-drawn animation, having that rustic and timeless quality of late 90s anime. Bebop is a masterclass in the subtle, as its episodic story disregards overarching narrative for mood and theme. Each episode is a pocket into the lives and meanings of the characters that inhabit the futuristic setting. Bebop is the story after the story, following a group of space bounty hunters who try to make ends meet. Episodic series only work if the vision from the creative team is tightly connected, giving purpose to each episode without having a plot to lean on. Bebop is an exercise in style and idea, one that reveals the maturity of anime, showing the emotional and creative heights we now come to expect with every new show. Like Attack on Titan, this final series carries you through the runtime. Situations and moments feel monumental as you experience something that feels wholly unique. Of course, I'm talking about Haikyuu. Not a show that would be on everyone's list for top 5 anime you must watch, but you know what channel this is. I had to bring up Haikyuu, and I had to do it early. Haikyuu is a defining sports anime and highlights what makes anime so effective. Haikyuu follows a tried and true sports underdog story, following Hinata's journey to playing volleyball despite not being very tall. Picking a popular subgenre was important for these 5 classics, as anime's spin on popular story structures plays into its universal appeal. No medium handles sports like anime. Animation allows the creators to slow down time to dive into the minds of players and coaches, and it never feels out of place or weird. The story is about volleyball, not about the drama of people who happen to play it. Haikyuu reaches an elevated status for how it understands setup and payoff. Few stories I have ever come across manage to fulfill every single promise set out at the story start, but Haikyuu manages to do it. Let's zoom out from Haikyuu and look at genre as a whole. Anime has many flavors of genres and concepts that is unique to the style of anime. Sports anime is a great example. While sports stories are rampant in film, anime has such a different perspective on the sports genre. For me, isekai, mecha, magical girl, and slice of life are the first places we should look. Isekai dominates the current anime landscape. If you keep up with new releases, then you will become intimately familiar with the genre and its tropes. There are many titles we could choose from. Sword Art Online, who helped launch the current craze of isekai, Konosuba, the comedy-focused series, or Mushoku Tensei's redemption tale. You can't go wrong with classics like Inuyasha or Log Horizon, but my pick would be Re:Zero. Re:Zero tells the story of Subaru as he finds himself in a new violent world. Subaru is in a type of fantasy video game where he must redo situations when he dies. Isekai is appealing for its escapism and opportunity for redemption, both of which exist in Re:Zero. Re:Zero has solid fantasy world building with layered encounters. The concept of isekai also works for its meta implications, the understanding that the main character and audience know that they're in a new world. And Re:Zero takes this a step further by mirroring the structure of a video game. Isekai is at its best when it acknowledges the meta and takes the story a step further into deeply rooted drama where the characters are fully invested in this new world. Re:Zero embodies that in the best way possible. Inherently, isekai is a meta-narrative, and Re:Zero pushes the boundaries of those meta-implications to a dark and emotional edge. The art of giant fighting robots was already touched on with Evangelion, but it's far too rich and essential of a genre to stop there. Mobile Suit Gundam is a must-watch series, but one that I will touch on later in this video. Instead, I want to focus on some of the modern mecha shows that have gripped the anime community. 86 is a tale of class divide and social unrest, explored through modern mecha anime. Full Metal Panic is a baseline mecha show that leverages its likable cast to deliver on mech tropes. But the ultimate mecha anime has to be Gurren Lagann. Gurren Lagann is the balls-to-the-wall insanity of mech that pushes anime forward in a way that only a show that knows no boundaries can. Gurren Lagann may forego some of the most classic tropes of mech, but makes up for it with heart and galaxy-defining world-building. It is the truest rags to riches stories that starts from a minuscule place underneath the ground and finds itself flourishing in the greater galaxy. Many of the best anime push aside normality and jump into the experimental, and Gurren Lagann does that by disregarding scale and going to the ends of the universe. There are 3 magical girl shows that tightly express what the genre is capable of: Sailor Moon, Revolutionary Girl Utena, and Madoka Magica. Building off of the genre started by Sally the Witch, Sailor Moon took the idea of a magical girl show and imbued it with lovable characters, great action, and a compelling plotline. Our understanding of magical girl transformations comes from Sailor Moon, as Sailor Moon added a step up for the kinds of stories in this genre, with the action-focused storytelling allowing the magical girl shows to reach a new level of power fantasy. Revolutionary Girl Utena is an all-time level show that takes the transformations and grounds them into backstabbing drama. Revolutionary Girl Utena offers a multifaceted exploration on abuse and trauma while exploring relevant themes of gender and sexuality. Sailor Moon upheld magical girl trope, while Revolutionary Girl Utena unmasks them. Madoka Magica deconstructs the magical genre altogether, becoming a dark and twisted reality about what it would truly mean to be granted your greatest wish. Slice of Life opens up a window into the daily lives of our characters, using the mundane as the centerpiece of its story. Most slice of life series do fold into other genres and ideas to keep things going, but at their core, they're focused on the day-to-day. Violent Evergarden shows the life of a former soldier who now writes and reads letters professionally, brought to life beautifully by Kyoto Animation. Mushishi is slice of life dipped in magical realism as it uses fantasy to explore how to find meaning in the mundane. And here I want to highlight Anohana, a story about a group of former childhood friends who reconnect in high school over the death of a peer. How do we move on in the face of death? Should we be allowed to go about our everyday life even when someone close to us is gone? That difficult reality is explored brilliantly by following the day-to-day of these kids in Anohana. Now, I have left a battle shonen-sized hole in this video. Shonen battle series are by far the most popular type of anime we have, with titles like Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, Demon Slayer, and Jujutsu Kaisen making up the Western collective conscious on what anime is. It would be easy to say watch every series I just named, but I want to take a little more of a refined approach. approach. All of us love battle shonen. That is a larger part of the content I cover on this channel, and it is something that all fans should be willing to explore, and I imagine many have already gone very deep into the genre. If we start in chronological order, you run into Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star. Both, I think, are worth checking out, at least a handful of episodes to see if they match your vibe. In particular, I think Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z are a series every anime fan should try. If you enjoy shonen, then this story has its fingerprints over all of anime, not just battle shonen. Dragon Ball pioneered shonen battle anime, but time hasn't eroded how well thought out the story is. Dragon Ball has a fun comedy tilt to its storytelling, while Dragon Ball Z gives you long emotional encounters that conclude with massive payoff. But if you want to see what the genre can be pushed towards, then my mind immediately goes to Hunter x Hunter and One Piece. Hunter x Hunter is my personal favorite battle shonen, as it tests the morality and psychology of the character tropes we love in these series, while One Piece pushes scope and world building to the absolute extreme, creating a world of richly layered setting and character. Both are must-watches in my opinion, but the list can't really stop there. I have to mention the big three, with Bleach and Naruto alongside One Piece. Naruto has top-tier fights, while Bleach uses subtlety to add really nuanced layers to its story. Additionally, you can't go wrong with the newer titles like Demon Slayer, and particularly for me, Jujutsu Kaisen. But there's also a lot of subgenres that you find here. If you look for a really great setting, then try Soul Eater with its Halloween-inspired atmosphere. If you want some slice of life, then I actually think Fairy Tail or Rave Master, both by Hiro Mashiyama, work brilliantly. And once you find yourself deeply in love with shonen battle stories, then give Gintama a watch, a series that will hit the hardest when you have a deep knowledge of all of the other stories it references. Now we have to look at shoujo anime. Most of the magical girl shows like Sailor Moon fit into this demographic. Fruits Basket is an emotional roller coaster that uses common tropes to create a story of immense sadness. I love newer releases like A Sign of Affection, a brilliant romance anime. And if you're looking for high school focused storytelling, then look no further than the hilarious Ouran High School Host Club that also has some really great mid-2000s vibes. But I also want to spotlight Banana Fish. Banana Fish is darker than most shoujo series I've mentioned, a mafia tale that never pulls any punches when it comes to its content and ideas, but you still get the core of what shoujo anime can be within this dark and unforgiving story. Seinen is the more mature demographic above shonen and shoujo, meant to handle some darker ideas and contexts than what you normally would see at shows whose primary audience is teenagers. I would be amiss if I didn't start with Vinland Saga, an extremely new entry for this list, first airing in 2019 and still hasn't concluded. Vinland Saga offers a maturity of theme and setting that you might not normally expect if you have little experience with anime. Vinland Saga tells the story of Thorfinn on his path of revenge. It handles violence in one of the most unique ways I've ever come across, and does so in a way that will change how you understand other series that deal with violent themes. While I think Vinland Saga will remain a mainstay of seinen anime for decades, we still shouldn't overlook the other brilliant series we've gotten over the years. Berserk 1997 brings to life the manga's Golden Age arc. This stretch of story is grimdark fantasy at its best. There are no heroes or villains, just characters who live in a world that seems a void of morality. The story of Guts is one every anime fan deserves to experience. The other place I look to for quintessential seinen anime has to be the adapted works of Urasawa with Monster and Pluto. Urasawa is a master of crafting intelligent and compelling manga, and both the Monster and Pluto anime adaptations match that brilliance step for step. Monster is a slower, unsettling dive that darks into deep-rooted mysteries, while Pluto is a tight affair, an 8-episode miniseries that is a dark retelling of a famous Astro Boy story. Both dive into the human condition, what makes us human, and the darkness within every human, while both unfolding with really compelling mysteries. But seinen doesn't have to lean into dark and violent stories, it's just a demographic after all, so I want to highlight the lovely and endearing Kaguya-sama. Kaguya-sama is an all-time great romance that leverages anime to deliver such an impactful story. It's a romance competition where two high schoolers try to get the other to confess their love. The series is hilarious and breaks down demographic barriers, a story that feels shonen but was published in a seinen magazine. Each episode of this series is a bunch of vignettes, little competitions that has a clear winner and loser on the path to getting romantic confessions. Avant-garde anime has the freedom to go in truly shocking directions, with series that narratively and psychologically push the boundaries of what we expect out of stories. I think everyone should experience Serial Experiments Lane for this very reason. In a way, Serial Experiments Lane is undesirable for how it can be hard to parse together, and I don't want to spoil any of its secrets, but trust me, this is one of the most mind-bending shows you'll ever come across. Art without avant-garde is an incomplete form. In the same way we need shonen battle titles, we need series that we can't quite understand. For me, Fooly Cooly, or FLCL, is the show that doesn't really work. For some reason, no matter how many times I watch it, I just can't quite put together what the meaning is, and I think because of that, it's worth watching. Ergo Proxy is another show that's difficult to describe, but so worth giving it a try. Here I want to pour one out for the forgotten seasonal anime. The seasonal anime structure has gotten out of hand over the last decade, with shows coming and going on a wheel, many of which never get a second season. But within this cycle, a flurry of gems come along the way. Shows that are worth giving a chance even if they never got a second season or didn't quite stick the landing perfectly. The first show that comes to mind is Death Parade. Death Parade is a 12-episode show where newly dead folk find themselves in a type of purgatory. Here they compete in bar games with the intent to reveal their true selves. This is the type of show that I adore from this era of anime. While it never got a second season, it didn't really need one because the idea and concepts are enough to give it a lasting impact. And it isn't the only show of this era like that. Yuri on Ice was the ice skating anime that captured the hearts of the entire community with its interwoven sports romance story, but we never got a second season. But I still think it's worth watching. Erased was a perfect mystery series that captures your attention from episode 1, and it's the type of show that you need to get to the end so you have an opinion on the conclusion to its story. Now that we have gone through some of the biggest genres, concepts, and demographics in anime, let's take a look at it from a chronological lens to fill in some of the gaps we missed. This takes us to the 60s with Astro Boy. Astro Boy is the anime we can thank for getting the ball rolling. Its influence on the entirety of anime can't be understated, and because of that, it should be watched by all who want to have a complete understanding and perspective of anime's evolution, even if you only give it a couple of episodes. Stylistically, Astro Boy pioneered what we now come to view as the aesthetic of anime. The timing of Astro Boy helped make it a phenomenon, but I don't think that's all it has to offer. 60 years later, Astro Boy still has charm, and the stories of Adam are really compelling. Astro Boy should be the 60s anime you start with, and if you want to know more about that era, then check out some of these titles. Golden Bat is an early superhero series that, while not having the same sophistication of newer titles in that genre, makes up for it by pioneering new ground. I love the volleyball anime Attack No. 1 as a different kind of anime than is normally talked about during this era of male-dominated media. Attack No. 1 follows a women's volleyball team with some really great internal dynamics and relationships. All Hive Q fans really should check this one out. Judo Boy is the last 60s anime I want to touch on, a pioneer in the martial arts side of things. Fans of Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star will feel right at home with this show. In the late 70s aired two of my favorite series, Anne of the Green Gables and Rose of Versailles. Both are worthwhile in this discussion as they are so varied genre-wise. Anne of the Green Gables is a historical slice of life following Anne, an orphan who navigates being sent to a new family that had requested a different child. Slice of life is an essential part of anime, as Japan's focus on time instead of action allows for stories that reflect our lives without the focus on point A to point B. Anne of Green Gables portrays what the genre was like back in the 70s. Rose of Versailles is a romantic historical fiction that replaces that slice of life feeling and imbues it with great scope of story. Set right before the French Revolution, Rose of Versailles reaches for the grandeur we come to expect from anime. This epic romance goes toe-to-toe with romance in any medium or any subgenre. It has multiple adaptations, but the 1979 version will always be the one for me. There are two mega series worth mentioning, Ashita no Joe and Mobile Suit Gundam. Ashita no Joe brought popularity to the genre through its mature and confident storytelling. To this day, arguably the greatest sports anime of all time. Joe originally ran in the early 70s. The story follows Joe's rise as a boxer, going through the struggles and difficulties of that. It transcends genre with a production that feels decades beyond the early 70s. A sequel series, just as good, would come out a decade later, and in 2025, if you're looking for pre-80s animes to watch, this is the place I would recommend you start. To discuss the fundamentals of anime and not bring up Mobile Suit Gundam is like trying to understand a hero without looking into the villain. Now, Gundam is not the villain of anime, but more like its heart. We've already talked about mecha, but Gundam is the start of it all, and well worth a watch. One thing that mech anime has always done incredibly well, and is no different in the series, is politics, as it unfolds this futuristic society of giant robotic warfare into some really great political endeavors. This takes us to the 80s, and while I've already mentioned the likes of Dragon Ball and Fist of the North Star, both of which are very much worth your time, the 80s was a vibrant and monumental decade for the world of anime. A little over 20 years was just the amount of time needed for shows and animators to really hit their stride. Mecha anime built on what Mobile Suit Gundam started with Gunbuster and Macross. Dirty Pair is a fantastic comedy series, and Robot Carnival, a film made up of various short stories, is a favorite of mine for how it delves into the weird and unknown with various tones and perspectives on the life of a robot, showing off the different styles animators started to bring to anime. Here, though, I want to spotlight Bubblegum Crisis. Bubblegum Crisis is a cyberpunk masterpiece that follows a group of girls who rebel against the corporations that control the future. When I think of 80s anime, this is where my mind goes, a futuristic setting that feels real and rustic through the hand-drawn art style. We've already discussed a slew of anime from the 90s in this video, but there are still so many others. Yu Yu Hakusho may get overshined by Hunter x Hunter now, but the Dark Tournament has an argument for anime's greatest tournament arc of all time. Slam Dunk is arguably the greatest sports anime of all time. Outlaw Star is a space adventure that could have reached the top 5 if it wasn't overshadowed by Cowboy Bebop. Now and then, here and there, is a dystopian story that will have you rethinking your place in the world. Great Teacher Onizuka is a comedy series following a teacher who has barely earned the qualifications for his job, yet strives for something great. The show accomplishes more than just laughs, but gives insight into very real, everyday struggles. For me, though, 90s anime is synonymous with Trigun. While I've actually really enjoyed Studio Orange's recent adaptation, nothing will beat the original. The hand-drawn animation here fits the 90s era, capturing the dry desert the story takes place in. Trigun follows Vash the Stampede, who commands a massive bounty. His trials through the desert of the Gunsmoke planet are compelling on their own. Add in a revelation of an ending, and you get an all-time great. The 2000s era of anime is the one I grew up in, so I may have more classics here than I actually should. I think Death Note and Code Geass are must-watches for every anime fan. Both follow a genius teenager while occupying slightly different demographics, Shonen for Death Note and Mecha for Code Geass. Death Note's cat and mouse game between Light and L makes for a bingeable show. Code Geass's grand narrative as Lelouch navigates a double life to try and take down his father flows into my favorite ending of all time. These two both deserve acclaim for the top 5 that I mentioned at the start of this video. Samurai Champloo and Mononoke are exercise in style and structure, both of which have left an impact on anime. A few years back, I made a video on Bokurano Rs, a forgotten classic, and feel the same way years later. Bokurano is a dark story of kids who are forced to murder a countless number of people, an exploration of humanity's brutal nature. Hajime no Ippo takes on the legacy of Ashita no Joe and delivers a more shonen streamlined boxing masterpiece. For me, the top 2000s pick has to be Baccano. Baccano is a pulp story that weaves through time in a tale of mafia, gangsters, and immortals, all infused with a jazz soundtrack you will never get out of your head. Baccano disregards linear storytelling for chaos, and that chaos is channeled through a violent story that will keep you guessing throughout all of its episodes. The 2010s were no exception to the amount of great series we got. Chihaya Furyu is a sports romance that continues to find depth in places I would have never imagined. Steins Gate is regarded as the greatest time travel series of all time, even if I don't love it. Most do. Fate Zero is still my favorite of the Fate franchise and remains the ideal jumping off point for that series. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has to be mentioned, as each part continues to redefine itself and what shonen can be. Made in Abyss is the inversion of power fantasy, unraveling a dark and grotesque version of the nature we wish to explore, and Angel Beats explores the afterlife in a school battleground sort of way. For me, Parasite the Maxim is everything I love about modern anime. It uses a very 2010s animation style and synth soundtrack to modernize a manga that came out decades prior. Parasite is a body horror series that asks primal questions about humanity and individuality. Now we've reached the 2020s, and I can only make guesses about what will age well. Odd Taxi is an unraveling of coincidences that all come together to create a satisfying conclusion for a ragtag cast. Blue Box is an addictive sports romance that I can't get enough of. The Apothecary Diaries is a medical mystery show that puts House to shame. But there's only really one choice for the show of the 2000s so far. Frieren. Frieren is the ideal fantasy series to counteract the low attention span we all struggle to deal with. Frieren takes its time and makes time the main focus of its story, while subtly moving through its narrative with the strongest of storytelling. Frieren is what anime can be in the modern age, a source of difference from the noise of content we are forced to consume. Frieren makes a step back, and we're glad for it. There was my laundry list of essential anime that I think everyone should at least give a try over time. I think it's important to try and define a canon for anime, so everyone has their own baseline for how they judge and understand shows. It is also just a fun pursuit to go back through the years and think about what shows you always wanted to watch but never did. I purposely didn't discuss the majority of anime films. Anime films are an essential part of the canon, but I felt they deserved their own video instead of getting mixed up in this mess. So don't worry, the likes of Miyazaki and Satoshi Kon, Akira and Ghost in the Shell all deserve their place amongst the anime canon. That's just a video topic for another day. I can't wait for comments to start rolling in with suggestions and recommendations that I'll either kick myself for leaving off or be excited to check out. As anime matures over time, so too will our understanding of what series are truly essential. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I've been wanting to make this video for a long time, but wasn't really sure how to package it. That is, until I saw the House of Tabula's film version of this video, that I realized I could do a similar thing for anime, but with more of a focus on the idea of the canon. So if you're interested in a list of films that you should check out, I put a link to his video in the description below. If you like these videos, then consider checking out my Patreon or YouTube membership. This is by far the best way to support me, as a few extra dollars a month really helps my ability to make consistently high-quality videos for you all. Through Patreon and YouTube membership, you get access to this channel's Discord server where I host my monthly anime watch-alongs. We're currently watching Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, your name at the end of every video, and access to exclusive Patreon posts. Thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.